and welcome to me DIYing stuff I randomly found on the internet and wanted to see if I can make it for cheaper. Patent pending. Today's episode actually stems from a long line of events that I can only put together in the words of our God and Savior Ariana Grande. I see it, I like it, I want it, and then it switches up a little bit with the fact that I'll make it. At first, my dad and I were going through a couple different sites and basically just looking at any ceiling mounted light fixtures that have cool elements to them. One of those elements being the fact that when a light shines through some of them, it would create even more visual interest around it on the wall. And I kind of wanted to see if I could make something like that myself. So I went to Pinterest, as one would. And a few things came up. This one was a little bit chunkier than I would have liked, so I opted to get something a little bit more detailed, like with less gaps in it, which is this one right here. It is very hard to keep it completely spherical though. This one's absolutely beautiful, but unfortunately because it's so low hanging, it's better for higher ceilings rather than the low one that I have in my room. And the last one that gave me interest was this one right here, which was basically like the second one. It just had a opening at the bottom versus a completely spherical close. So let's get started so you can actually see which one I was more inspired by, unless you happen to see the thumbnail, in which case you already know. So to start off, I'm actually taking quite a few of these, and you probably already have these in your home considering everybody's stocked up on toilet paper for this little pandemic that we have. I cut each of these into, I would probably say about 5 or 6 1-inch pieces or so. I did not measure these, I just eyeballed them and it turned out pretty well. I won't lie, this probably took me about 25 minutes altogether because there were a lot of toilet paper rolls. I've been saving these for quite a while now. My hoarding capabilities are turning into a skill. Whether it's a useful skill still has yet to be determined, depending on who you ask. Now let's speed this ish up 30-fold. Do people still say ish? Anyways, go 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 go! Ah, the power of editing. About 20 seconds for you, and I don't even want to say how long it actually was for me, but here we go. On to the paper mache. So, if you don't know, which apparently some people don't, but to make paper mache, like true paper mache, you use 1 part water to 1 part any type of easy to wash off glue. So I'm not talking like super glue or hot glue or anything like that. You guys know. School glue, Mod Podge, etc. And basically just mix it all in together. The more that you mix it, obviously the more combined it's going to be. You can cut down on some of the drying time and mix it together by putting the newspaper or the newsletter into it and then mixing that around, because that's going to help saturate it and it's also going to help mix it around. How many times can I say mix? Which brings me to the newsletter or the newspaper. I usually use a pair of scissors to cut little slits, again about 1 inch apart, and then I just rip it with my hands, hot dog style. And then these guys, I found that the easiest way was to rip those in half the opposite way. It almost kind of hamburger style-ish. It just creates a very easy way to wrap it around and around and around the toilet paper rolls without having too much of a wet, I'm gonna call it a tail hanging off it, to basically hit you in the fingers, the arms, or the face. Which I can 100% assure you happens. Definitely not at all to me, but in general, yeah. And here's the half-finished outcome. Now again, I don't even want to tell you how long this took me, so I'm just going to say that this is a decent process in making it. Now to stick them all together with some hot glue. You can use whatever glue, but hot glue is obviously going to be the fastest. And I will say, if you are wanting to do something that is completely spherical rather than like almost like an amorphous shape, you're going to want to not put any of them flat anywhere to each other. Like I started with 7 of them on the table flat, and then I started angling them out from there. You're going to want to start angling them right quick from the first one if you're going to want completely spherical shape. Otherwise, it will give you a slight square type appearance, aka an amorphous blob, which you definitely can say is, you know, artistic abilities or meant to be like that, you know, whatever. Now that we've got some free time on our hands, come here often. If you do, maybe think about subscribing or whatever. So a couple things to note about this process. One is the more of an angle you attach two pieces onto, obviously the more angled it's going to become and the more kind of spherical it's going to be. Second, I honestly would recommend actually painting these before you stick them all together. It's just a lot easier in the long run. Of course, I wouldn't personally know because, well, I painted it afterwards, but I can only assume that it would be quite a bit easier. And 3, if you do want this to be a perfectly shaped sphere, then I would definitely recommend putting something that is also a perfectly shaped sphere in the middle of it, maybe like a bouncy ball or a balloon. Just be sure that whatever it is can be popped at the end and easily taken out, because otherwise it is extremely difficult to make it perfectly shaped. Once the hot glue is perfectly dry in all areas, I'm coming in and taking the little glue spider webs out. If you've ever done any crafting at all with any hot glue, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Done and done. Now time for the paint job. I would recommend no matter what color you're doing this, unless it's going to be a shade either gray or black. Of course, that's the only other shade, Sarah, good job. To do a white base layer to it. After the white base layer, I decided that I actually purely wanted to do the white and not have any actual color, but if you want this to be more of a spectacle, definitely go with any color that you'd like. I think this would look really pretty in a bright color, with it already being the shape that it is, made out of what it's made out of, and further showing off the light that's being emitted into it. I don't think it needs to have a color, but if you do want it to be more of a statement piece, then definitely go for it. The color wheel, in the same way that the world is your oyster. Because I did choose to keep this purely white, I did, I think, 2 or 3 layers of the white. Honestly, with acrylic paint, you can't exactly tell because, well, it dries super fast, and if you're going back and forth between multiple surfaces, which you definitely are during this, it's kind of hard to tell. But with any color besides black, I would definitely recommend after the white is put down to put in 1 to 2 coats to make it as opaque as possible, and also because the newspaper or the newsletter print tends to come through quite a bit, especially if it's darker. And once the paint is all dry, it's time to attach. Now, I know I probably don't have to say this, but just as a disclaimer is I am definitely not an electrician. You'll be able to tell that if you didn't already know, but y'all ready for this? First thing to always do when messing around with the light is obviously turn it off. Besides that though, if you're actually messing around with the wiring that's inside the light fixture, you're going to want to turn your breaker off. I am just messing around with the actual light itself, so I didn't have to do this. Think about it as though just changing a light bulb, although with that being said, if you feel uneasy or uncomfortable with it, definitely turn the breaker off because your safety is the #1 priority. With this, lucky enough, the light bulbs that I actually had on this completely fit very, very well into the paper rolls that were round and round and round with newspaper, so it was absolutely perfect. I just had to meddle around with the mount a little bit, but it was good to go. You may find when you're dealing with an older fixture that it's actually fixed to the ceiling with almost nothing but paint. So don't freak out, don't freak out, don't freak out. You didn't break anything? Just continue on. There's usually something else that was actually holding it in place, which I found out in just a few seconds. I was going to take this portion out, but I decided to leave it in because you can just see the utter terror ensue all across my face. Thinking of how I was going to fix this, in the end it all worked out, but in the time it was just, I did not know what I was going to do. I thought I had broken the house. There was a good 5 minutes or so, I'm gonna say, of me just utter panicking, wondering how I was gonna fix that situation, and then I remembered that I had unscrewed something previously before I had taken the screwdriver to the ceiling, so I decided to try to screw that back in, and like I said, it ended up working in the end. Things are usually not even half as bad as they seem in the moment, especially when you are a dramatic ass bitch like I am. Like I said, right as rain, whatever that means.
Well, that's cool.
I mean, it's not the most ideal. First of all, it's supposed to be a circle or a sphere, like I was telling you.
The lighting is cool. like the effect of it is very cool. It's too, you need another bulb in there. I mean, like something that's not so fucking awful to look at.
Oh,
because
yeah.
that's like blindingly bright. I don't know, I'm just looking at it. Oh, cool.
I'm hoping, I mean, eventually at some point in this lifetime to get a bulb that's probably LED. Because, you know, having a bulb that emits heat around paper probably isn't the smartest idea, you know?
Cool.
Yay!
Love it.
Thank you. Woo! I like it! Ah!
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay, I didn't think it would work out as well as it did. So as you could tell, I definitely loved it. It wasn't completely perfectly spherical, as I've been saying this entire time that I wanted it to be, but honestly, I really just love how the light cascades through it. I think it is phenomenal, and the entire cost of this was only $3.75 for 1 tube of paint and 2 tubes of glue, all from the dollar store. It's compared to, I think, the cheapest one that I saw on Etsy was $11 or $12, and that you'd have to make yourself, so why not add a few more steps and make it entirely your own. However, if you do want to purchase it instead of just making it, I will leave the links in the down bar below. But besides that, hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!